Welcome back to Complete Conversations with your one and only Complete Restoration. We're diving into real stories, expert insights, and everything that you need to know about protecting homes, businesses, and communities. Whether it's fire, water, mold, or just the unexpected, your mess is our mission at Complete Restoration. So join us as we share tips, experiences, and the heart behind why we do what we do. Let's talk restoration, resilience, and everything in between. So I'll pass it over and let's dive in.
All right, so today let's take a deep dive into something you might not expect in a state known for its, well, chilly winters.
Yeah.
Mold.
Mold, right.
You wouldn't think it'd be a big deal in Montana, but as it turns out, our cozy, heated homes can actually become like havens for mold, especially during those long winter months.
It's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? We tend to associate mold with humidity and warmth, but the reality is that interplay between Montana's frigid outdoor temperatures and then our toasty indoor environments, well, it creates the perfect conditions for mold to thrive.
So even in a place known for fresh mountain air, we're not safe from those pesky spores.
Unfortunately, that's true. Think about it. You've got those freezing temperatures outside, and then inside we're all cranking up the heat to stay comfortable. And that drastic temperature difference leads to condensation forming on cold surfaces like windows, exterior walls.
Oh, so it's kind of like when you have an ice-cold drink on a hot day and the glass starts to sweat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's condensation in action. And it provides that moisture that mold needs to grow. Then add in our everyday activities like showering, cooking, even just breathing.
Oh, wow.
All of which release even more moisture into the air.
So it's like we're unintentionally creating a mold buffet.
Exactly.
In our homes.
Yes.
And to make matters worse, we're often sealing our homes up really tight during winter to keep the heat in, which is great for our energy bills.
But it also traps that moisture inside, reducing ventilation and creating a stagnant environment where mold can flourish.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Did you know that in Montana, a specific type of mold called Stachybotrys chartarum, also known as black mold, is particularly prevalent?
Black mold. Okay, that sounds kind of ominous.
It can be. It's one of the more toxic molds and is often found in areas with water damage, like those condensation-prone spots we talked about.
Right.
Exposure to black mold can lead to a whole host of health issues, everything from respiratory problems and skin irritation to even neurological effects in severe cases.
Wow, I had no idea a mold could be so dangerous.
It's definitely not something to take lightly. And that's why understanding how mold grows in a place like Montana, with its unique climate and building practices, is so crucial.
Knowing all this makes me wonder what people in Montana should do if they suspect they might have a mold problem. Who can they turn to?
Well, thankfully, there are experts right here in Montana who can help. A company called Complete Restoration LLC has been tackling mold issues in the state for nearly 2 decades.
So they really understand the specific challenges that homeowners here face.
Absolutely. What I find particularly interesting about Complete Restoration is their approach to mold assessment. It's not just about looking for visible signs of mold. They use a multi-pronged approach to really get to the root of the problem.
So how do they actually figure out where the mold is coming from? Because it's not always obvious, is it?
You're right, it can be tricky. They start with a visual inspection, of course.
Yeah.
But then they take things a step further using high-tech tools like moisture meters and infrared cameras to detect hidden moisture. It's like they're mold detectives.
That's fascinating. So those tools help them identify those sneaky leaks behind walls or moisture trapped in insulation, even if you can't see it with the naked eye.
Precisely. And if needed, they'll also do air and surface sampling. Now, this might sound a bit complicated, but it basically involves collecting air and surface samples to identify the types and concentration of mold spores present. This helps them determine the severity of the issue and which specific types of mold they're dealing with.
So it's about gathering all the evidence before jumping into a solution.
Exactly. And that's what sets Complete Restoration apart. They don't just treat the symptoms, they create customized remediation plans based on a thorough understanding of the problem, ensuring that the mold is eliminated effectively and safely.
That's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
Especially given how harmful some of those molds can be.
It is. And it's a good reminder that when it comes to mold, it's always best to rely on the expertise of professionals.
Right, because trying to tackle a mold problem yourself could end up doing more harm than good.
Exactly. So if you're in Montana and have any concerns about mold in your home, Complete Restoration is definitely a resource you should keep in mind.
They're ready to help you create a healthy and mold-free environment. But before we dive into their specific remediation process, I think it's important to understand what we can do as homeowners to prevent mold from taking hold in the first place?
Absolutely. Prevention is key, and thankfully there are a lot of practical steps you can take.
All right, let's get into those preventative measures. Let's get into those preventative measures.
It all starts with humidity control. Aim to keep indoor humidity below 60%, ideally between 30 and 50%. I know that can feel tough in the winter, but a dehumidifier, especially in those moisture-prone areas like bathrooms and kitchens, can really help.
That makes sense. So less humidity, less happy mold. But what about those sneaky leaks? Those can be tough to catch, right?
You're absolutely right. Even a small drip can, over time, create a mold haven. So addressing leaks promptly, whether it's a leaky roof, a dripping faucet, or a crack in the foundation, is critical.
That's interesting. Because I've heard some companies just focus on cleaning up the visible mold, which sounds like a temporary fix at best.
That's a great point. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. You're not actually fixing the problem.
Right.
The Complete Restoration understands this. They go beyond just cleaning up the mold. They identify and address those underlying moisture issues to prevent the mold from coming back.
Yeah.
It's a much more holistic approach.
Okay, so we've got humidity control and addressing leaks. What else can we do to keep those mold spores at bay?
Air circulation is key. Open windows whenever possible to let the fresh air in.
And when it's too cold for that, I can't imagine opening my windows in the middle of a Montana winter.
Right. In those cases, make sure to use exhaust fans, especially when showering or cooking, and ensure your home's ventilation system is working properly and that you're changing those filters regularly. Those can become breeding grounds for mold if neglected.
Good reminders. And there was one more thing you mentioned earlier that really surprised me. Insulating cold surfaces.
Ah, yes. This one is often overlooked, but adding insulation to windows, pipes, even exterior walls can significantly reduce condensation.
Wow, I never thought of insulation like that. It makes so much sense now. You're essentially putting on a warm coat for your house, preventing those cold spots that attract moisture.
Exactly. It's all about making your home less hospitable to mold.
So we've talked a lot about how mold can thrive even in cold climates like Montana, the health risks involved, and steps we can take to prevent it. But what happens when those preventative measures aren't enough?
That's when it's time to call in the professionals. And like we mentioned earlier, Complete Restoration is a great resource here in Montana. They have a team of trained and certified technicians who specialize in mold remediation.
Okay, let's walk through what that process actually looks like.
Yeah.
What can someone expect if they call Complete Restoration for help?
The first step is a thorough assessment, which we touched on earlier. They use those moisture meters, infrared cameras, and, if necessary, air and surface sampling to pinpoint the source and extent of the mold growth. Then, they develop a customized remediation plan based on their findings.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. Each situation is unique. Their remediation plans outline the specific steps needed to safely and effectively remove the mold.
What's that involve? I imagine it's more than just spraying some bleach, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very meticulous process. They use industry-approved methods and equipment to contain the affected area, preventing the spread of spores during removal. Then, they physically remove the mold using HEPA vacuums and specialized cleaning agents. They also address the underlying moisture issues, whether it's repairing a leaky pipe, improving ventilation, or encapsulating crawl spaces.
So it's really a comprehensive solution aimed at not just getting rid of the mold, but preventing it from coming back.
Exactly. And they don't stop there. After the remediation is complete, they conduct a thorough clearance test to ensure the mold has been completely eliminated and the area is safe for reoccupancy.
Wow, that level of attention to detail is impressive. It sounds like Complete Restoration really goes above and beyond to ensure the health and safety of their clients.
They do, and they're always available to answer questions and address concerns throughout the process. They understand how stressful dealing with mold can be, so they make it a priority to educate their clients and guide them through every step.
So for anyone in Montana facing a mold issue, it sounds like they can rest assured that Complete Restoration has their back, literally. They've got the expertise, the technology, and the commitment to get the job done right.
They do. And for anyone listening, whether you're in Montana or elsewhere, remember that knowledge is power when it comes to mold. Being aware of the risks, taking those preventative steps, and seeking professional help when needed can go a long way in protecting your health and your home.
Well said. So before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of mold, let's recap some of the key takeaways. Let's recap some of the key takeaways. We've learned that mold isn't just a problem in humid climates. It can thrive even in those seemingly inhospitable cold climates like Montana.
Yeah, that's right. The interplay of temperatures and moisture and our own lifestyle habits can create the perfect conditions for mold growth even when it's freezing outside.
And we learned that mold isn't just a cosmetic issue. It can pose some serious health risks, from respiratory problems to allergies, even more severe effects. It's not something to take lightly.
Absolutely. And the fact that a particularly toxic type of mold, black mold, is prevalent in Montana makes it even more important for homeowners to be aware of the risks and take proactive steps.
And speaking of proactive steps, we discussed a bunch of those, right? Controlling humidity levels, promptly addressing any leaks, making sure there's good air circulation, and that unexpected tip about insulating cold surfaces. It all adds up to making your home less inviting to those pesky mold spores.
Exactly. Those preventative measures can go a long way in keeping mold at bay. But even with the best precautions, sometimes mold still happens. And that's when knowing who to call for help becomes crucial.
And that's where complete restoration comes in. They're not just about cleaning up the mess. They're mold detectives, using all sorts of high-tech tools to pinpoint the source of the problem and develop a customized solution that's both effective and safe.
I think that's a really important point to emphasize. They're not just putting a Band-Aid on the issue, they're getting to the root cause and ensuring the mold is gone for good. And the fact that they're a local Montana company means they truly understand the unique challenges homeowners in this region face.
Right. They're not some big, faceless corporation. They're part of the community with almost 20 years of experience tackling mold in Big Sky country.
And what I find particularly reassuring about Complete Restoration is their commitment to transparency and education. They walk their clients through every step of the remediation process, answering questions and addressing concerns along the way.
So they're not just treating a house, they're treating people, which makes a big difference when you're dealing with something as stressful as mold.
It does, and it speaks volumes about their dedication to creating healthy and safe environments for Montana families.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. From how mold grows in those unexpected places to the health risks involved, and of course those crucial preventative measures. We've given our listeners a lot to think about.
We have, and hopefully we've empowered them to take action, whether it's making those small changes around the house to prevent mold growth or reaching out to the experts at Complete Restoration if they need help tackling an existing problem.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's all about protecting our health and our homes. And remember, if you're in Montana and have any concerns about mold, Complete Restoration is just a phone call away. They've got the knowledge, the experience, and the commitment to help you breathe easy again.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of mold, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Have you checked your home for potential signs of mold growth lately? Maybe it's time for a little inspection just to be on the safe side. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about mold and how to prevent it, the better equipped you'll be to protect your home and your health. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay mold-free.